The wind whipped across the plains with a ferocity that made even the hardiest cattle shiver. Snow crunched under the boots of Tom Callahan as he stepped out of his cabin, lantern in hand, and squinted into the night. The storm had come out of nowhere, burying his ranch in a cold so sharp it cut straight through leather and wool. He had faced winter storms before, but tonight something felt different. The air seemed to hold its breath, waiting. A faint sound reached him over the wind, a weak, rasping whisper almost swallowed by the blizzard. He froze, listening, heart hammering. There it was again. A voice, delicate, trembling, impossible to place in the vast emptiness. He followed the sound, each step a crunch in the deep snow. And then he saw her. She was slumped at the edge of the porch, barely moving, her dark hair plastered with snow and ice. Her lips were blue, her cheeks ghostly pale, and her breath came in shallow, trembling gasps. She raised a shaking hand and whispered, barely audible over the wind, I got frostbite. I need to warm up." Tom's heart jumped. The voice was thin, frail, almost like it could vanish if he looked away. He knelt beside her, gripping her shoulders, and felt the chill of death in her body. She shivered violently, teeth chattering in a sound that made him grit his jaw. "Hold on," he muttered. "I got you." She didn't respond, just let her head slump against his arm, her eyes half closed. Tom knew frostbite could kill or leave a body scarred forever. He hoisted her into his arms with a careful strength, ignoring the sharp stab of ice biting through his gloves. She was light, almost weightless, but the cold had stiffened her limbs into boards. Every movement sent a shiver racking through her frail form. Inside the cabin, he laid her gently by the fireplace. He stripped off his own coat, wrapped her in blankets, and tried to warm her hands with his own. Steam rose from a pot of water he had quickly boiled, and he used it to moisten cloths, pressing them against her frost-bitten fingers and toes. She flinched at every touch, pain crawling through her frozen flesh like fire. "Thank you," she whispered finally, barely able to speak. Tom nodded, unsure how to respond. Words felt inadequate in the presence of someone so fragile, yet so alive against the deathly grip of winter. He watched her eyes flutter, catching glimpses of black, deep and wary, eyes that seemed far older than her years. When she could finally manage to sit upright, she coughed, the sound weak, barely a whisper. "My name, Ayana," she said, and the single word hung between them like a fragile thread. Tom let her rest by the fire. He fetched her a cup of warm tea, bringing it to her lips. She drank slowly, carefully, as if even warmth was a dangerous thing. "Where did you come from?" he asked gently, sitting beside her. Her eyes drifted toward the window, toward the dark plains beyond. They took my people," she whispered. "The soldiers. They left me." Tom's jaw tightened. He knew the stories too well. Entire Apache bands chased from the canyons, hunted down by the army, scattered into snow and despair. He had ridden with soldiers once, years ago, and he had seen the cruelty firsthand. But he had left that life behind, for good, or so he told himself. She shivered, and he wrapped another blanket around her shoulders. "You're safe here," he said. "For now." Days passed, and the snow continued to fall, relentless, burying the land in white. Ayana recovered slowly, her strength returning in measured increments. She helped where she could, feeding the horses, cleaning the cabin, even trying to mend old saddle straps with frozen fingers. But she spoke little, the words catching in her throat, as if speaking might summon the horrors she had fled. Tom watched her, sometimes from the corner of his eye. She moved with a strange, haunting grace, the way a wild animal moves in the forest, aware of every sound and shadow. Her presence unsettled him, yet comforted him too, a paradox he didn't dare acknowledge aloud. One morning, as sunlight broke weakly over the snow-laden plains, Tom spotted movement on the horizon, dust trails, moving fast, soldiers, his stomach knotted. They were looking for her. He knew it without being told. He found her by the horses, brushing a trembling stallion. Her hands moved deftly, almost magically, coaxing calm from the nervous animal. She looked up at him, eyes wide and steady. "They'll find me," she said softly. "I should go." Tom shook his head. No, not while I'm breathing. They had no time to discuss, no luxury for hesitation. He positioned himself at the gate as the soldiers rode closer, rifle resting casually in his arm. When they called out, demanding to know if he had seen an Apache fugitive, he shrugged, feigning ignorance. "Ain't seen nobody but me here," he said. His voice was calm, but every muscle in his body was ready to act. The soldiers searched, circling the cabin and the surrounding snow. Inside, Ayanna hid beneath the floorboards, her heart hammering. She held the small silver locket Tom had given her for courage, gripping it as tightly as her life depended on it. Hours later, the soldiers left, unsatisfied and grumbling. Tom exhaled, relief washing over him. He lifted the hatch and looked down at her. "You can breathe now," he said softly. Her lips curved into a faint smile. "You lied for me," she whispered. He nodded. "Guess I finally did something right." After that night, the bond between them deepened in silence and understanding. Spring eventually crept back across the plains, melting the snow to reveal green beneath. Ayanna regained full strength, moving with a confidence that belied her previous fragility. She built a small cabin near the creek, though she often found reasons to spend time in his. Even Tom, gruff and solitary, found himself anticipating her presence, the sound of her voice, the quiet way she observed the world. One evening, as the sky burned orange over the horizon, she sat by the fire, her fingers brushing against his calloused hands. "The frost," she said softly, eyes reflecting the flames. "It took everything from me, but you gave me warmth when there was none left." Tom felt the weight of her words, the gravity of all they had endured together. "Then stay," he replied quietly. "Stay where it's warm." She did. And over time, the snow came and went, soldiers faded into memory, and the land healed around them. They carved a life out of the wilderness, two souls bound by survival and a slow-burning trust that grew into something neither had expected: love. Travelers passing by the ranch sometimes saw them together, Tom tending the horses while Ayanna gathered herbs and water from the creek, her laughter ringing clear across the plains. Some whispered stories about the Frostbite girl, the Apache woman the snow tried to claim, yet who had survived against impossible odds. And on nights when the wind howled like it had that first evening, some said her voice could be heard across the ranch, soft and quivering. "I just needed to warm up." But those who knew the story understood. The warmth had never been about survival alone. It had been about connection, compassion, and the quiet heroism of a man who chose to save someone even when it meant risking everything. In the end, the plains kept their secrets, as they always did. Yet the legacy of that winter night endured in the hearts of two people who had braved the cold together and found something worth keeping: life, love, and the courage to defy the frost.